Better World Blueprint. Good humans doing good things.
Here we are, on the cusp of a new year. It could be just another day, or you could be piling it high with expectations. One thing that I hope for the new year is to discover more good people doing good things. Because when you're looking at new beginnings, these are the lights that show us the way, how to make the world a better place. This is A Better World Blueprint, and I'm your host, Siobhan Hunt. Many years ago, I signed up to a meditation course. I went because I was suffering from anxiety, and I'd been told that this particular method had good results. It was at a place called Open Ground, and it was 8 weeks of meetings in a group with lots of practice in between. The founder also happened to be my teacher, Timothea Goddard, who promptly told us to call her Tim. Tim has now been teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction for 20 years and has so much wisdom to share. This is my chat with mindfulness teacher Timothea Goddard. Hello, Timothea, and welcome to A Better World Blueprint.
Oh, thanks so much, Siobhan. Happy to be here.
What led you to the work you currently do in the mindfulness space?
Well, a long journey, of course. In my 20s, I was invited to come on a Vipassana retreat with a good friend of mine. And it was quite an adventure. Silent 10-day retreat, very tough, very demanding. And it opened up something in me. I'd been quite an anxious kid and young person, and I just realised that, on some days in that retreat, I'd be thinking, these people are monsters. They're, I'm like I'm in a concentration camp or something. And the next day I'd be so grateful for this opportunity to learn this new thing. So it was like I just saw my own mind creating stuff. And I'd done other trainings in an Eastern kind of way, lots of intensive Aikido training and Zen retreats, and then more insight meditation retreats. So I was in that in my own life, and it was very meaningful to me. And in my early 40s, I'd been teaching this psychotherapy training that some colleagues and I had put together, and it sort of ended for good reason. We stopped doing that. And I just have a teacher part of me that kind of needed a playpen. Because of this background, I suppose, in therapy, and I'd been an educator and I was a mindfulness practitioner, I knew of Jon Kabat-Zinn's work, and I just loved his translation of Buddhist psychology into a course that could be short enough that people would do it, but kind of intensive and in-depth enough to make a difference. I just rather precociously, invited a gang of friends and colleagues who were all meditators, teachers and therapists, so they were kind of well equipped with the base skills, to come and sort of train with me. So we offered this 8-week course, which kind of brought together mindfulness-based stress reduction, which was Jon Kabat-Zinn's base course that a lot of the current mindfulness stuff is based on, and also mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, and we began teaching it. And I just found like I'd found a true home for myself and the power of it. Like, I was a long-term psychotherapist, and I just could not believe what people got out of an 8-week program.
I might just stop you there because I have a few questions based on what you said there.
Uh-huh.
Well, the first one is just a practical question. What is Aikido?
Aikido is a Japanese martial art, and it came out of a whole lot of traditions in Japan, I think, but around the early 1900s it came, there was a guy who put it together.
One of the questions I do like to ask people is, once they had this understanding that they wanted to do something, what did they do next? And it seems that what you did was look to your immediate community, whether it was friends or colleagues, and go, okay, this is my starting place. This is my, like you mentioned, your playpen.
Very much so. I mean, we sort of trained ourselves out of books, really, and then started teaching it to the community. And again, I invited, my hairdresser, all the therapists that I knew to come. And that was really good because people loved it. And then there was a sort of network of referrers, right, from that very first step. So that was genius to do that. I mean, the other thing I did is I went to the States and trained properly in mindfulness-based stress reduction. So I wasn't just this dilettante, precocious one. I did go and do the work with them, and that was very inspiring because those teachers, that pedagogy, that way of teaching and learning, their ethics were just, I'd never quite seen anything like it, even in the psychotherapy world or other, mindfulness Dharma communities. I just found like I just really could respect the way they were teaching and learning, and it felt like I want to be part of this. And then I did come home from that and continued. We set up a business. I set up a business, well, less a business, more of a mission, but because I'm someone who's never done a business plan. I have never done a budget even. So it's a great mystery how this did kind of take off. But certainly, I think great enthusiasm. And I'd never been one to be able to kind of communicate in a selling way to anyone. But about this course, I could just when you really know the value of something, it was effortless for me to be quite compelling, which I'd never had the experience of before.
What's the secret weapon? I mean, you mentioned that when you started teaching, you felt like you'd found your true home. I know that more than anyone else, you're probably best equipped to describe to me what that feels like. For people listening, they might hear someone finds what they want to do in life or it feels right, but they don't know what that feeling is. If you had to articulate it, what would it feel like?
Finding this way of teaching, this way of being with people, and this methodology was like the world matched my gifts. And that is a gift, isn't it? Like if you can, and I think this is the agony of unemployment or, people who aren't given enough support to even feel their own gifts. That's an agony to never have a world that can receive what you've got to give. And what it feels like is effortlessness and confidence building.
You've mentioned that it's the way that John teaches or the way this method is taught that really resonates with you and you think is quite special. Are you able to tell me what that is exactly?
Yeah, and I think it's very different from how a lot of education is, and it's certainly very different from how a lot of mindfulness education is now. Well, a lot of mindfulness education now is all recorded for starters, so people don't make a relationship with a teacher. So there's something about treating someone signing up for a course, relating to it that I, as a teacher, am encountering that person with all their complexity. That's the first step, making a personal relationship straight up of care and knowing. Them getting to know me in that talk, me getting to know them, that we're going on this kind of journey together. And then as we enter the course, it's very experiential. And I think a lot of, courses now pride themselves on being experiential, but this is really opening up enough space and time in the practice for people to encounter their own minds. So as well as that, and a lot of the teaching comes out of that, a practice, and then really interrogating it all together as a community. Mindfulness helps you turn towards your anxiety and your anger and know it and know it's legitimate in some context. And what do you want to do next, knowing that? So it's very empowering, and each person's subjectivity is on it in a way that I don't find happening in a lot of other contexts of learning anything. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. One thing I was thinking then, though, that as a teacher, you're holding that space, and that's what came to me when you were saying that. I remember feeling that there was a lot of space held for individuals and as a group when we were learning this course. But I also, something you mentioned there about turning towards our anxieties or our angers, that can be really confronting. And the practice itself is a practice, so it takes commitment and a bit of work. There's effort required.
Yes.
So one of the things I imagine might be quite challenging for you as a teacher is helping people stay the course, like
Yes.
literally stay the course, so
Yeah.
come back. How is that experience for you? Because you're trying to allow people to, as you say, understand and meet their own mind.
Yes.
But some people do that and then they run away terrified.
Yes. Yes.
How do
Yes.
you manage that situation?
Yeah. And that's rarer than you might think. If you've set up a good frame and playpen, so if you set it up as, like, there's a lot of Pollyanna blah blah about mindfulness around, I think. Like, it's going to make you calmer and you've got to be more loving and generous. And yeah, we all know that, don't we? And as soon as we turn towards ourselves, we find that we're quite envious or jealous or hopeless or hateful, actually, contemptuous of others. Like, no one wants to hear that, do they, about themselves or even know it? But what a liberating process when you're sitting in a room where that is actually known about, that everybody has that in them. And it's no big deal at all. And it's quite workable and it's natural. It's natural for mammals to have these aversive emotions to protect themselves. So when that's really welcomed, and if you know the person enough, you know, like in the first interview with people, sometimes I say, you are going to hate this course so much. You are going to find me so annoying, and you're just going to want to jump out of your skin as soon as you start doing that body scan, I tell you. So are you up for that? And I'll tell you why I think that, having had this conversation with you, you know, so you're engaging and you're saying, this is normal, this is natural. You've tried like many people come to mindfulness training, an intensive one like mindfulness-based stress reduction. They come to it because they've tried a lot of things. So you come to this and you're probably up for a bit of challenge and a bit of engagement. And it's probably exciting a little bit to have a teacher who's going, yeah, this is going to be hell. I'll be with you. Come on. Look, we're all going to be in hell together. It's good. It's fun. And that this, what you're feeling, is not weird. You are not a loser because you're feeling it. It's natural. And more, the causes and conditions of this culture, as it goes down the gurgler a bit, like there's a lot of painful stuff going on in the world, and it's natural to feel alienated, discombobulated, disempowered, uncertain. And to have a place when that can be actually honoured, it's not like a downer. It's actually, fuel.
Did you ever stumble? Was there ever any doubt in your mind that this was the right path for you?
I'm someone who loves a very flat structure in an organisation, sort of us kids together. And I had some stumbles when I had to be the boss. So I don't like that role. I have a huge trust in individual teachers if they've done the work to do it their way. But sometimes, so I found it quite hard. I had to do a lot of womaning up to kind of be the boss when I had to be, which I kind of recognise is a part of the role of being a leader. The other thing that's it's not exactly a stumble now, but we've become a not-for-profit, which is, I didn't realise. Like, I'm 66, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was not expecting the learning curve that I'm having to do now to actually be a contributor and a former, a shaper of a not-for-profit, because it's unbelievably different to just doing your own thing. And we needed to do that in a way if we wanted to continue, because people who have chronic pain, people who have anxiety, depression, trauma, often don't have money to pay for a course like this that's, 28 hours long. But this is my worst nightmare, right? So I'm stumbling daily. So we're doing marketing and planning, and I'm just like, talk about aversion, talk about unpleasant, but it feels like a good thing to be doing, and we need to do it.
What I find fascinating about that is the idea that the stumble doesn't always happen at the beginning. Like, you can find the path that you need to travel, but understanding that in itself doesn't make the path smoother is kind of important to know, right?
Exactly. And I had no idea this hell realm that I was inviting myself into. But it seems the right thing to do, right? I don't think I would have chose it, and I am in an ongoing way finding it very demanding, and I'm going to learn. I've really, first I was sort of a bit like, I don't want to, I'm too old. And then I was like, well, what do you want? Do you want the alternative to that it just dies here? And no. So, just like, and I could learn that these things are less frightening and less difficult maybe.
Can I ask, how has this work changed you? I mean, like you said, you've been doing it for 20 years, so it's a long time, but are you able to reflect on how it's changed you personally?
It's led to more and more trust in myself and in trying to lead. It's strangely like filling up and emptying out at the same time. So filling up with access to goodness inside, which one never knows at the beginning. There's always imposter syndrome, I think, when you're trying to grow into something. So filling up with that and emptying out of not taking it personally in a way or something.
You have mentioned different kinds of impacts you've seen of this work that you do. I'm wondering if you have any individual stories that come to mind of how you've seen this practice that you teach changing or impacting someone's life.
Yeah, I have a profound one from, so many years ago, about 18 years ago, and I talked to this young man. And in those days, we used to do the initial interviews face-to-face and, asked why you're coming. And he said, oh, well, I hit people. I punch people. I was like, oh, what the hell? Tell me more. And he was about 18 and he'd been sent by his girlfriend. He was a darling. He had a girlfriend and he had a loving mum who'd both sent him because he was losing his block with people. And this is really not on for young men to be doing this. And he had an apprenticeship. He was just a lovely guy. But he said, this just happens like that. And over the 8 weeks, the kind of learning he did, amazing that he could take this on. And in about week 5 or week 6, he had put together that when he feeling shame, and this is in the rough and tumble of peer, young men, young women relationships, when he feels a moment of shame, he can't tolerate it. So he lashes out in this way. And in week 8, he said to us all, and this is in a community, right? This is the brilliant thing about this course. We have 80-year-olds in the course and 18-year-olds grappling with, this. And everywhere in between, people with no money, people with lots of money. So you're having conversations across communities, making a small community where we're listening to each other's inner lives. And it was so beautiful for him at the end to say, I'm not going to be doing that anymore because I know how to feel shame and not react to it. This is how I'd been using the practice. Now, this is sophisticated psychological emotional intelligence, right? In a short time. And I think it's the community thing. We sit in a group, we hear other people talking about their inner lives, and every story people tell or everything they share about liking or not liking the body scan and how it's affecting their sleep. Or when we do education, we do psychoeducation about what emotions are, what thinking is. People are just drinking it in because many people have lives in which there are no conversations about inner life. And we do it with our intimates if we're lucky, but who does this with seriousness and care and gentleness and curiosity? And inner life is puzzling, right? So people can say, you hear some weird stuff that people are saying about how they are as people, and it's all normal. And so it's very freeing, and you do learn from each other. So the journey people take is always different depending on what they come in, but just to see these heartening people getting complexity, like there is so much simple, dumb stuff in the psychological space. If only I did the 5 lists, 5 things to make you a more mindful person or to feel less anxiety. Really? Because it's bullshit. Every anxiety, the meaning of your anxiety in your life is what's important. People could be anxious for a zillion reasons, right? And it's going to be specific to you, and that's what something like a mindfulness practice offers you. You're actually finding out what is the shape of this life and what action is needed now, not some tick as if anxiety is a thing or depression, and getting a grip on your own complexity and taking it seriously, that it matters.
Tim, it has been such a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's been great to speak with you too. I wish you so well with this contribution you're making. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Timothea Goddard from Open Ground. If you'd like some insight into what keeps Tim on her path, check out my article. You'll find links in the episode notes. Next time on A Better World Blueprint, I've got a pretty special one.
Years later, when she came to visit us with her little girl, she was in tears because she was reunited with us and very grateful for the time that she'd spent with us.
That's my mum, Marilyn Hunt. I want to start 2025 with someone who I see as part of the foundation of this podcast. My mum has taught me what it's like to live in the world, making it better for one person at a time. So if you're keen to hear some of her wisdom and experience, please join us for that chat next time on A Better World Blueprint. I'm Siobhan Hunt. See you then.